for Sri Lanka.
Hello and welcome to the National News. We are coming to you live from the National News studio, and together with me is Tilanudaya Ratna. I'm Dulanjali Ananda. These are the top stories which have made headlines tonight.
There will be no power cuts from the 5th of this month. Unloading of diesel from the ship anchored at the harbour begins tomorrow afternoon. The world market records the highest price of $113 for a barrel of crude oil after a period of 8 years. The Russian army intensifies the attacking of main cities of Ukraine. Measures to consolidate security of Sri Lankan students in Belarus. Patients once again subjected to extreme suffering due to the resumption of the strike in the health sector. Sinking of 4,000 most expensive vehicles in the sea.
Now, we have been witnessing many lengthy queues at filling stations, and this is due to the shortage of fuel, and it's prevalent for quite a while. At the same time, there seems to be some good news coming our way by tomorrow.
Well, on our top story for this evening, the Ministry of Power says that the unloading of diesel from the ship at the Colombo port will commence tomorrow afternoon. The relevant payments have been made and have been in order from today. Accordingly, $31 million were paid for the ship carrying 37,300 metric tons of diesel to Sri Lanka. The ship is presently anchored outside of the Colombo harbour. Meanwhile, our correspondent says that long queues were witnessed near filling stations in many parts of the island today as well. The Department of Railways says that the fuel crisis does not affect train transport. Certain media have stated recently that the fuel shortage would have paved the way to the cancellation or restriction of train journeys. However, the department points out that they are receiving fuel stocks from the Kolonnawa terminal without any shortage. It reiterates that therefore not a single train service has been suspended. Well, just like Dulanjali mentioned, a lot of people around the country seem to be inconvenienced with the ongoing power and fuel crisis. Let's see what the government hopes to do in the coming weekend as matter of a plan is being implemented.
The President has instructed today to all relevant sections to take measures for a continuous power supply. Accordingly, the officials have promised the President that there will not be any power cut from the 5th of this month. A special discussion was conducted at the President's office this afternoon regarding the ongoing power cuts and fuel prices. Upon the lengthy discussion between President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and officials of the Ministries of Power and Energy and Electricity, it has been decided to import fuel without delays to maintain appropriate stocks and also on supply of coal and fuel for continuous power generation. The officials have stated that therefore there will be no more power cuts after the 5th. Distribution of fuel, all filling stations will resume all usual distribution from tomorrow.
The Public Utilities Commission has issued a communique regarding the manner in which the implementation of power cuts tomorrow should be taken up. Accordingly, a 7.5-hour discontinuation are scheduled to take place tomorrow as well. There will be a 5-hour power breakdown between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. and a further 2.5-hour power cut from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m.
Now, we have been talking about the Ukraine and Russia conflict, and we have been giving you latest updates very in detail. And Mr. Prasad Dodangodage is joining us today, but this time it is to give you an update on the relevancy that is prevailing for the oil price hike that is taking place due to this impact. Welcome on board, Mr. Prasad Dodangodage, our senior international news analyst. What is it like now? We saw that the ship taking the way towards Scotland carrying the oil tanker, but they turned back. Does it mean that...
Yes, Dulanjali, with these developments, with the behavior of the current global energy markets, oil markets, we can assume that there would be a major international energy crisis is at our doorstep. Because when we carefully analyze the current behavior, especially the today's price hike at the global oil market. The crude oil reached $113 mark per barrel. That's the highest price recorded since 2014, June 2014. The main culprit behind this situation is the Russian invasion of Ukraine, because there are many incidents interconnected with that major crisis, and the main reason is the sanctions piling up by Western nations. Now today we saw the global media reports mention there's a very big chaos at the oil market. Some of Russia's traditional buyers, clients, oil clients, they are shunning now Russian oil. They are going to, yesterday Canada announced that they are not going to buy oil from Russia anymore. And with that, there were some reports. Russian oil dealers are very busy in selling their stocks, even at very lucrative discounts. But unfortunately, their main clients are Western countries. And with that situation, however, one thing, now today the oil prices are very high. Russia is getting a temporary benefit of that, because they can earn some dollars before these sanctions come into fully effect. So with that situation, global energy markets are getting more and more volatile, because the Russia, their contribution is very high in the global market, because Russia shares 1/6 of global natural gas market and 1/8 of global oil market. So with these numbers, if this share, the global market lose these stocks, Russian stocks, then there would be a shortage. Likewise, the same thing happened when United States of America imposed sanctions on Iranian oil exports. A lot of countries face difficulties due to that situation. Now there is a similar situation is brewing, because if these sanctions are going to effect very soon, then Russian oil and gas will be out of the global market even for a temporary period. Then with this situation, there would be a very volatile and chaotic global oil market, energy market. The oil prices will reach more than this, and because all these are speculations, markets are running on speculations. So with this situation, the speculation is, very about this volatile situation. Where the speculation is, not for the positive side. It's on a very negative side. That's why the prices are going up. Then there could be follow-up by gas prices and coal prices as well, because the countries will struggle to gather energy sources. So the final victims of this crisis are countries like Sri Lanka, because even today there were predictions by, there's a report in BBC website. If you go to BBC website, you can read that. They suggest that British oil, the price of a petrol liter could go up, if you consider it in a local currency, maybe 420 rupees per liter. So that's the prediction in the British market. So this wave, it's like a tsunami. It will come to our shores as well. So we can assume, and this situation, if this crisis drags too long, the Ukrainian crisis and the sanction crisis, then it will be a very bad impact on global economy and many countries, including Sri Lanka.
So it certainly is not limited to Russia and Ukraine. Certainly it is having a greater impact overall around the globe. So thank you so much, Mr. Prasad Dulanjali, senior journalist and international news analyst. And from there on, we'll steadily go on to the analysis or the more detail of the Ukraine and Russia conflict update from yesterday to today, what the developments have been.
Well, there seems to be serious implications coming from the current crisis in Ukraine, and serious neighborhoods and a number of key cities in Ukraine have been attacked over the last few days, and Russia intensifies its attacks on key Ukrainian cities, with fighting raging on for at least 7 days in north, east and south. And Russian paratroopers have in fact landed in Kharkiv in the northeast, and Ukraine says that with heavy fighting reported. Meanwhile, the US says it will ban Russian airlines from its airspace following the lead of the European Union and Canada. Russia has claimed that they have taken control of southern Ukrainian city of Kherson. The Russian Defense Ministry has indicated that talks are underway between the Russian army and local authorities on maintaining order. Kherson's mayor Igor Nikolaevich, however, said in a post on Facebook that the city is still under the control of Ukraine. The Russians are said to be in control of Kherson and are also encircling Mariupol, a much bigger port city down on the Black Sea coast between Crimea and the breakaway regions. Russian President Vladimir Putin has on last Thursday ordered troops to invade pro-Western Ukraine to demilitarize the country. Putin recognized the breakaway regions days before he launched the full-scale invasion. All in all, the Russian military damaged more than 1,500 military facilities in Ukraine, adding that 58 planes, 46 drones and 472 tanks and other armored vehicles had been destroyed. Meanwhile, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky accused Russia of seeking to erase Ukrainians, their country and their history. Russia has bombarded Kharkiv, Ukraine's second city since it invaded the country, shelling first presidential areas and then the center of the city yesterday. In his first State of the Union address, United States President Joe Biden announced closing U.S. airspace to all Russian flights, saying that Moscow will be weaker by the end of its war against Ukraine. Addressing a joint session of Congress late today, Biden said that the United States is imposing powerful sanctions on Russia that are cutting off its banks from the international financial system and choking its access to technological imports. The U.S. president also hit out repeatedly at Russia's President Vladimir Putin, saying that he alone is to blame for the war. Google has removed mobile apps connected to Russian media outlets RT and Sputnik from its Play Store, in line with an earlier move to remove the state-funded publishers from its news-related features, the company announced today. Yesterday, the Alphabet-owned company said it had taken content from Russian state media down from its news-related products, including the Google News search tool. Earlier this week, Meta, YouTube and TikTok blocked Russian state-owned media outlets RT and Sputnik in Europe, the companies said. Nearly 700,000 refugees have fled the conflict in Ukraine for safety in neighboring countries, while around 1 million people are estimated to be internally displaced, the United Nations said yesterday.
This situation certainly has an impact on Sri Lankans as well. So the Sri Lankan Prime Minister has instructed relevant authorities today to take security measures on behalf of the Sri Lankan students pursuing higher education in the state of Belarus, taking into consideration of the military environment created as a result of the war between Russia and Ukraine. He has given the order to the Foreign Minister, Professor G.L. Pilis, at the Sri Lankan Embassy in Moscow. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa has given instructions in response to the request of collective of parents representing nearly 1,500 Sri Lankan students conducting studies in universities and higher educational institutes in the state of Belarus. The Prime Minister's office says the Sri Lankan embassy in Moscow is taking measures to consolidate security of nearly 1,500 students in Belarus, which is a neighboring state of Russia. The President has also given instructions pertaining to delaying of academic activities of the students by several weeks upon discussion with the university authorities, and to allow the students to receive visa permits to arrive in Russia and subsequently to make arrangements from them to return to Sri Lanka. Now, the 49th United Nations Human Rights Council is taking place in Geneva, and Sri Lankan delegation has also participated.
Well, the government has taken measures to enlighten foreign representatives over the baseless allegations being leveled against Sri Lanka at the United Nations Human Rights Council. The process will be carried out in parallel to the 49th session of the UNHRC in Geneva. A meeting between UN High Commissioner of Human Rights and the Sri Lankan delegation is also scheduled to take place.
Today is the third day of the Human Rights Council's 49th session. Today there are no any item scheduled in regards to the Sri Lanka's interest. However, that High Commissioner's report on Sri Lanka scheduled tomorrow, 3rd of March. There is a delay on that report because of the Ukraine crisis is giving the more prominence and the priority. So Sri Lanka's report from the United Nations Human Rights High Commissioner is going to be delivered on the 4th of March or the 7th of March. That means Friday or the Monday. So we are still ready. As Sri Lankans, we are going to respond to that report. We are ready. We have 2 speeches scheduled in responding to High Commissioner's report. Normally, once the High Commissioner presented this written report, then the Sri Lanka's delegation has the opportunity to address it. Then the other country is going to comment on that. Then the other chance, those who are supporting or those who are going to express their disagreement on the report will get the chance to respond to that report. So we are taking that opportunity to express our views and mostly the dissatisfaction over the High Commissioner's report. This is not the first time we are representing Sri Lanka's interest in Geneva as civil organizations and the civil citizens. It is primarily, we all aware that the representing the country is the country's prime responsibility. Normally, the Sri Lanka's delegation or the permanent representative for the United Nations in Geneva supposed to respond the High Commissioner's updates as well as the High Commissioner's report and whatever the challenges coming from the Human Rights Council. We have observed many times previous years that the Sri Lanka's response wasn't adequate enough to address the issues raised by the High Commissioner as well as the Human Rights Council and the member states. Now this time we can see some difference that there are 3 ministerial members of the current governments are here in Geneva. I have witnessed that they are doing best possible they can do to convince the other countries, that the delegation as well as the permanent representative and the staff, and doing lots of negotiations as well as the discussions. I think that is going to be the positive step. I hope that the next Geneva session, not the next one, the 51st Geneva session is going to be very crucial for Sri Lanka. So I hope that the Sri Lanka is getting the better out of it with all these preparations.
Well, it also seems that Archbishop of Colombo, Cardinal Malcolm Ranjit, has also had his talks with the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, in Geneva in related news. During the meeting, he briefed the United Nations Human Rights Chief on the Easter Sunday terror attacks that occurred on the 21st of April in 2019 and the progress of the investigations. Before his meeting with the United Nations Human Rights Chief, the Archbishop of Colombo also had an audience with His Holiness Pope Francis at the Vatican recently. The Archbishop also briefed the Pope over progress of the ongoing investigations into the Easter Sunday terror attacks.
Now, in other news, several health sector trade unions have resumed a strike with effect from today based on several demands. As a result, patients have been subject to strenuous difficulties. Officials in the nursing, supplementary and paramedical services have been engaged in a continuous strike since the 7th of last month, requesting to remove the salary anomalies in the health sector that have arisen as a result of the elimination of salary discrepancies in the teacher principal service. It has been suspended earlier upon discussion with the authorities. The Health Professionals Association says the suspended trade union action has been resumed today. It was the patients who have arrived at the Colombo National Hospital for treatment who suffered immensely. Meanwhile, patients receiving treatment at hospitals in numerous areas in the island have expressed their deep apprehension over the resumption of the strike. The government has focused attention to rectify any salary anomalies and to formulate an appropriate salary structure applicable to the entire state service through recommendations of an intensive committee incorporating all relevant institutions under the leadership of the National Salaries Commission. Minister Keheliya Rambukwala has focused attention of the ministers of the cabinet at its yesterday's meeting. State Minister Sudarshini Fernandes said that this is not the time to engage in strikes. The country is undergoing a crisis. Therefore, she has requested to engage in discussions by considering the plight of the people.
Well, how important is getting your booster vaccine? It definitely is, especially given that we are approaching the Sinhala and Tamil New Year coming over April. And Deputy Director General of Health Services, Dr. Hemantha Herath, urges the public to make sure that the booster vaccine is obtained without any sort of delay, considering the upcoming festive season. He made these remarks while attending and speaking at a media briefing today.
We know up to now around 16.9 million persons have already obtained at least first dose of COVID-19 vaccine, and that brings up to around 96% of the targeted estimated population. And we know that 4% of the estimated target population is still or yet to get their first dose. And this number is, if you calculate the number, it is somewhere around 700,000 persons. And if you leave aside the people who are contraindicated or those who cannot take the vaccine, which is a very minute fraction of these numbers, we still can see that a large number of persons are yet to get a first dose of vaccine. And we would like to request everyone, those who have not got the vaccine up to now, to get the vaccine as early as possible, and also those who have not so far got their second dose after getting, because there are around again over 1 million persons who have obtained the first vaccine but not taken the second vaccine, and these people too should be requested to get their second vaccine. And those who have got the second vaccine, the total number indicates around 14.1 million, and only 7.1 million persons have got the booster dose, and therefore around 50% of those who got the second dose have not got their third dose. So therefore, again, we would like to request everyone, get their appropriate vaccines as early as possible, and thereby get yourself protected, especially during this festive season where we can anticipate a rise in numbers of cases or spread of the disease, and thereby you can more likely to get yourself infected. So therefore, get your vaccines as early as possible so that you will be protected and the likelihood of dying or getting into complications can be minimized.
Now, a meeting of the Women's Federation of the Hiraliyala electorate of Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna was held recently. The chief guests on this occasion were Minister Johnston Fernando and Parliamentarian Kokila Gunawardena. The event, which took place at the new fair premises in Ibbagamuwa, was organized by Parliamentarian Sumit Udukumbura. Now, the Attorney General has informed the Supreme Court today that 13 pension funds, including the Employees Provident Fund and the Employees Trust Fund, do not come under the purview of the proposed surcharge tax. The three-member panel of Supreme Court judges comprising of Justices Buwaneka Aluvihare, A.H.M.D. Nawaz and Arjuna Obesekara has been appointed to examine the petition filed challenging the Surcharge Act draft bill submitted to Parliament by the government. Deputy Solicitor General Viveka Sirivardhana, appearing on behalf of the AG, has submitted to the judiciary and letter sent to the Attorney General by the Secretary to the Ministry of Finance stating the amendments to be made to the proposed draft bill. The Deputy Solicitor General has stated that several revisions are to be made to the draft bill at the Parliamentary Committee stage proceedings. She has further informed the judiciary that steps have also been taken to exempt the relevant funds from the period proposed tax. And we go for a short break. Stay tuned for more news coming your way. Welcome back. On News from Home, now there have been initiatives that the government has taken to encourage certain importation of products and discourage certain importations rather, and encouraging exporting. And all this at the same time, these products can be grown domestically, and turmeric is one such product. At the same time, the fertilizer crisis that has been taking place for a while is also something that we have to look into, while the organic fertilizer seems to be giving some success stories.
Absolutely, which is why a majority of the farmers in the island are in fact reported to be using organic fertilizer in their cultivations. Many reports from many parts of the country indicate that they are in fact reaping bountiful harvests through organic farming. 12,600 acres of paddy cultivation in the Rambe Agrarian Service Division in the Kurunegala district have come under the application of organic manure. The farmers say that they are receiving a higher harvest than in previous seasons. Around 8,000 farmers in the Rambe Agrarian Service Division are engaged in organic fertilizer-based paddy cultivation. Under the government's program to purchase stocks of turmeric in storages unable to be sold, 75,000 kilos have been taken over by several centres in Mirigama, Pallevela and Pasyala. The purchasing price of was 165 rupees per kilo. The program has been initiated by the Spices Board. Parliamentarian Kokila Gunawardana was also present on the occasion. Well, in other news, the Ministry of Urban Development and Housing says that the government factory in Kolonnava has now turned into a profitable status. The anticipated sales target for the year is 625 million rupees. It has also been pointed out that as a result of the handing over of a sum of 300 million rupees by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa during his tenure as president has enabled the factory to become a profitable institution. The Kolonnava government factory was established in 1849 as a workshop. Later on, it has been transferred into a factory engaged in ironwork, machinery and electricity generation. The institution has been functioning as a service provider for government institutions, and later on its services had been extended to the private sector as well. The Kolonnava workshop was the first motor car assembling institution in Southeast Asia.
The Sri Lanka Air Force has celebrated its 71st anniversary at the SLF base camp in Katunayaka today. Commander of the Sri Lanka Air Force, Air Marshal Sudarshana Patirana, has inspected a guard of honour held in this connection. All Air Force camps were engaged in tree planting and community treatment projects today to commemorate the occasion. It was on the 2nd of March 1951 the Royal Ceylon Air Force was established. Since then, it has come under the leadership of 18 commanders-in-chief, a momentous contribution of the SLAF to the nation in its 71 years of history has been cooperation extended in the defeat of terrorism through provision of aircraft support to spot and destroy enemy targets. It was also engaged in rescuing the civilians in instances of natural disasters as well as in welfare projects.
The project to manufacture armoured and other vehicles required by the Sri Lanka Army for army operations by the Sri Lanka Army divisions has been successfully going on at present. The vehicle manufacturing has been carried out at the Udavalava base workshop belonging to the Sri Lanka Army and Electrical and Mechanical Engineers Regiment.
The objective of this project is to maintain a vehicle reserve inherent to Sri Lanka Army and suitable for the needs of the country as well as for the Sri Lanka Army. The manufacturing of vehicles required for Sri Lanka Army on its own has been initiated under a concept of Commander of Sri Lanka Army, General Shavendra Silva. The new Unicorn vehicle reserve has been manufactured using the chassis of the Unicorn vehicles which were used during the humanitarian operations and currently taken out of the active service. The initial production of this vehicle was commenced in the year 2020. 50 heavy vehicles are also expected to be manufactured under this project. Accordingly, 38 trucks, 7 water buses and 5 gully buses will be manufactured. The Electrical and Mechanical Engineers Regiment has indicated that so far 10 such vehicles have already been manufactured. 200 soldiers are currently being attached to the Udavalava base workshop. They manufacture a total of 3 new vehicles for each month. These vehicles will be utilized for Sri Lanka Army operations. The fiber parts required for trucks and buses are being manufactured by small-scale entrepreneurs, allowing them to earn a revenue through this project. The Sri Lanka Army Electrical and Mechanical Engineers Regiment has also been able to manufacture a brand new food transport truck in addition to the vehicle fleet. Meanwhile, the Uni-IMOV armoured vehicle has been manufactured with bulletproof steel panels and glasses. This has been innovated as a commanding unit which can be used for operations conducted in urbanized regions. The objective of the Sri Lanka Army Electrical and Mechanical Engineers Regiment is to initiate the project to manufacture vehicles which are equipped for combat and trucks at the end of this year.
Well, that's it on local news. Stay tuned with us. We'll come back with international news right after a short break.
Welcome back. On foreign news now, about 2 weeks back, we reported of a ship, not just any ship, but cargo ship which is carrying luxury cars, about 4,000 luxury cars caught fire. And now we have got the news to say that these Porsches and Bentleys have sunk into the ocean. And this is more on this.
Well, in the same news, a cargo ship carrying thousands of luxury cars has sunk off the Portuguese Azores archipelago nearly 2 weeks after it caught fire. The ship, named Felicity Ace, was transporting around 4,000 luxury cars, including Porsches and Bentleys.
The vessel was en route to Rhode Island in the United States from the German port of Emden when the fire broke out. All of its crew members were evacuated when the fire broke out on last 16. The ship crew had said that no oil leak had been reported so far, but claimed fears over the damages caused on the fuel tanks as the vessel lies at the bottom of the Atlantic at a depth of around 3,500 meters. Portugal's Navy confirmed 0 casualties from the fire and that the 22 crew members were taken to a hotel after the Navy, 4 merchant ships sailing in the area and the Portuguese Air Force completed the evacuation. Volkswagen said damage to the vehicles was covered by insurance which could cost around $155 million. Bentley confirmed that 189 of its cars were on board the ship and Porsche said it had about 1,100 of its models on board.
It's cricket, certainly for the cricket fans who are keen to know if their favorite cricketer, which rank has been given to them. And we get to know that Pathum Nissanka has been advanced from his previous position. And this is more on this story.
Well, Pathum Nissanka has been successful in advancing to the 9th position in the ICC World T20 International Cricketers. According to a previous T20 grading as well, he was also able to be included among the top best bowlers and all-rounders as well. Wanidu Hasaranga remains in the 6th slot according to T20 bowling rankings, and he has also secured the 10th position among all-rounders. The Sri Lankan team, which took part in a T20 tournament in India, has returned to the island. The Indian team has made a whitewash by clinching a 3-0 victory in the tournament. The Test cricket tournament between Sri Lanka and India is scheduled to commence on Friday in Mohali. This match would become the 100th encounter of Indian batsman Virat Kohli and Sri Lanka's 300th Test appearance. The 2022 beach handball tournament organised by the Sri Lanka Handball Association was held in Dehiwala. The competitions were conducted under the two categories men's and women's open events. The Matale district team has beaten the Kotalavala Defence University team in the finals. 12 men's teams and 10 women's teams took part in the event. 2 foreign teams also competed. Past pupils of the Bandaranaike National School in Kegol have organised a softball cricket tournament, the visuals of which you are seeing now. Well, that's a wrap on tonight's Rupavahini English News. Join us once again tomorrow at the very same time. Until then, thanks for watching. Take care. Good night.